on the air. This
Right.
is how arrogant the government is in California. This
Right.
is how bad it is when one party controls any government of either party.
Right.
I was embarrassing them on the air
Right.
for weeks, and still nothing happened
Right.
until the governor himself intervened and said, you know, this is getting embarrassing.
Right.
And of course, it was a bunch of bullshit. None
Right.
of it ever needed to happen.
Right.
It wasn't even the one that bothered me the most. The one that bothered me the most was my garage door. When I moved into this house, it had a 3 garage.
Picture this. You buy a house. You pay a mortgage the size of a small country's GDP. You pay taxes every year like you're personally funding the moon landing. And then when you want to change something basic like a garage door, the government hits you with, whoa, whoa, whoa. Slow down, buddy. We're going to need 3 inspections, a plan check, a permit, a sacrificial goat, and a handwritten apology to the planning department. If that sounds insane, welcome to the Bill Maher plus Adam Carolla rant that accidentally became the most honest California review you'll hear all year. And look, if you're into this kind of no-filter breakdown, do me a favor. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments if you've ever had to beg an office clerk for permission to live your own life. Because I need to know I'm not alone here. Because this isn't just a celebrity complaining about rich people problems. That's the part people try to dismiss it with. Oh, Bill Maher has a house in Malibu. Boo-hoo. No, stop. That's the lazy way out. What Ma and Carolla are pointing at is bigger than Malibu, bigger than Hollywood, and bigger than anyone's bank account. It's the feeling that in certain places, especially one-party states where the same machine runs everything, your property doesn't really feel like your property. It feels like you're renting your own freedom from a bureaucracy that gets to say maybe to everything. And what makes it hit harder is the specificity of the stories. These aren't vague, the government is bad speeches. These are real, annoying, soul-draining scenarios. Mars is talking about how it took him 2 years just to get a permit for something as basic as a roof situation. 2 years for a roof. That's not safety. That's not smart regulation. That's not even slow. That's molasses running uphill while wearing ankle weights. Now, I can already hear the comment section warming up. Well, permits exist for a reason. Safety codes, oversight. Sure, nobody's arguing you should be allowed to build a skyscraper out of toothpicks and vibes, but this is the part that drives people nuts. There's a massive difference between we need to make sure your building won't collapse on your neighbors, and we need to supervise your garage door like it's a nuclear reactor.
Okay, it doesn't fit 3 cars. I don't know what these cars are. It fits 3 motorcycles.
Right.
Okay, like I don't live in a mansion. I don't want to. I live alone. Okay, I've got a wonderful house. Happy to have it. No one would mistake it for, like, you know, lifestyles of the rich and famous. Okay, so I wanted to change my 3-car garage, wink wink, to what it should be, a 2-car garage. This took 3 inspections. Inspections?
Right.
For I'm just changing my garage. Why do you have to be involved in my life when I'm changing my garage?
Because
if it falls down on my head, that's my fault for doing it with a bad contract.
Right.
And Maher's garage door story is the perfect example because it's so hilariously petty, but also deeply telling. He moves into a place that has a so-called 3-car garage, except it doesn't fit 3 cars unless your cars are Hot Wheels. He jokes it fits 3 motorcycles. And honestly, that's probably generous. So, he tries to convert it into what it should have been in the first place. A normal 2-car garage, not a mansion expansion, not an extra wing, not a back cave, a garage adjustment. And what does California say? Congratulations. Here are your 3 inspections. 3 inspections to change a garage door setup. That's like needing a federal review board to replace your shower head. And the question Maher asks is the one every normal human asks. Why are you involved in my life at this level? If my contractor messes it up and it falls on my head, isn't that my problem? Isn't that the whole point of being an adult? This is where Carolla's point is actually sneaky smart. He's basically like, if you're renting a rent-controlled apartment in Santa Monica, I get why you vote the way you vote. Because if your housing situation is locked in and the city's protection feels like a benefit, then yeah, the system can seem great from inside that bubble. But he's saying, go buy property, try to remodel, try to pull a permit, try to do anything that requires you to interact with the city, then come back and tell me this government isn't too big. And that's where the rent control argument becomes a weird distraction. People bring up rent control like it's a magic spell. Oh, you're mad about permitting delays? Well, we have rent control, okay? And rent control doesn't build new housing. Rent control doesn't speed up construction. Rent control doesn't help the person who wants to actually own something, build something, fix something, and put down roots. If anything, the combination of rent control plus endless building restrictions creates a situation where supply stays limited, demand stays high, and prices go to the moon. While everyone argues on Twitter like they're solving it.
Plan check, and all of the above. I had to deal with all of it. And I would always say, look, if you're living in Santa Monica and you have rent control apartment, good. Vote the way you vote. I get it. But buy a piece of land, get a home, go to the city, try to pull a permit, and then tell me how you feel about this government. Because I think it's too big. And you go, what? We get rent control. Yeah, you get rent control. Go buy a piece of property, try to do a remod, go talk to the city, and then tell me how you feel.
Because you're doing this to your home.
Right, and I've done
You were wiped out.
No, I wasn't wiped out. My home is intact in Malibu. Everything around it is burnt.
But wait, here's where it gets even more interesting. The wildfire angle. Ma and Corolla touch this nerve that a lot of people feel, but don't say out loud. After all the rules, all the oversight, all the layers of protection, and all the bureaucracy, do we get better outcomes? Are wildfires reduced? Are communities safer? Are rebuilds faster? And the brutal answer that hangs in the air is not really. You still have massive fires. You still have neighborhoods wiped out. You still have displaced families. And now you also have the extra bonus level of suffering where, after your house burns down, you get to spend months, sometimes years, playing paperwork survival mode just to rebuild. That's the part that makes normal people's heads explode. If your system is going to be this intrusive, this expensive, this slow, it should at least produce results. That's the bargain. That's the trade. We'll tolerate the hassle because it keeps people safe. But when the hassle multiplies and the results don't improve, people start asking the forbidden question, what is this really for? Because here's the vibe a lot of residents get. The bureaucracy isn't a tool anymore. It's a lifestyle. It's a self-sustaining organism. It exists because it exists. It feeds itself. It creates more rules so it can justify more staff, so it can enforce more rules, so it can create more fees, so it can justify more rules. It's like a snake eating its own tail, except the snake is wearing a lanyard and telling you the next available appointment is 6 months from now.
Business was doing it to other
Why did your
people's
home
homes.
survive?
God loves me. You should know that, Bill.
No, really. Everything around you burned?
I would say 80% of what was around me burned. And
Did you take precautions that others didn't? Did you like
wear a
wet,
condom?
wet in the roof?
No, I didn't.
I changed my roof since last year. I have a whole different roof.
I noticed
and I have
it
a
when I
thing
was
that
there.
goes in the pool where
To
you
pump
can,
it.
You
Yeah.
shoot the pool up on the roof.
I did nothing in just complete luck of the draw, like the Hood, the SS Hood, which was a British ship sunk blown up by the Bismarck in World War II, and 1,800 sailors went into the ground and 6 popped up. Went to the drink and 6 sort of came up.
And Maher brings up something that makes this even funnier and darker at the same time. Celebrity privilege doesn't even fully solve it, because normally the internet assumption is famous people don't deal with this stuff. They snap their fingers and it's done. But Mars is basically saying even he got stuck in the sludge, even with influence, even with connections, even with the kind of status where people pick up your call at one point. He describes how the situation became so embarrassing that the governor himself had to step in and go, okay, this looks bad, which is hilarious because that's not leadership, that's PR damage control. And it accidentally exposes something really important. If the system is hard for the well-connected, it's impossible for the average person because your average homeowner doesn't have time to play phone tag with agencies. They don't have teams. They don't have consultants whose entire job is permit whisperer. They have jobs, kids, bills, and insurance. They have a life. So when the city says, actually, we need 3 more inspections, what they hear is, you're going to bleed money, patience, and time until you give up.
On the air. This is how arrogant the government is in California. This is how bad it is when one party controls any government of either party.
Right.
I was embarrassing them on the air for weeks, and still nothing happened. Until the governor himself intervened and said, this is getting embarrassing. And of course, it was a bunch of bullshit. None of it ever needed to happen. It wasn't even the one that bothered me the most. The one that bothered me the most was my garage door. When I moved into this house, it had a 3 garage.
Corolla's Glendale warehouse story is honestly the most dystopian comedy in the whole conversation. He goes to the City Planning Commission and says he wants to pull a permit to do work on a warehouse he bought. And the person behind the counter asks what he's going to do with it. He says, I'm going to put some cars in there. And she goes, they might let you do that. They might let you. That sentence alone is why people lose their minds.
And I was like, are you nuts? And I realized she didn't know what was going on. Then you talked about your garage door. But the point is you got turned a little bit with your solar shack. And I said it a million times, live in rent control, fine. Go get your own home and try to pull a permit. You'll start thinking more like me. And you try to get your solar shack permit, and that took 2 years.
And this is where Ma drops that Rubicon line that actually lands. Because when you can't do basic things on land you own, land you pay taxes on without asking permission from some faceless system, you've crossed into a different kind of society. Not overnight, not with a big dramatic announcement, quietly through 1,000 tiny rules. And let me be clear, this isn't a no rules ever argument. It's a proportion and sanity argument. The difference between don't build unsafe structures and you need government involvement to swap a door is the difference between law and control freak theater.
Pull a permit. And I went in to the planning commission of the city of Glendale and I said, I want to pull a permit to do some building on my warehouse. And the 25-year-old chick behind the counter goes, what are you going to do with that warehouse? That I bought, by the way. And I said, I'm going to put some cars in there. And she goes, they might let you do that. And I thought, they might let me do that with my property.
It's infuriating.
It's insane, and it's huge, and it's a California thing, and unfortunately, it's a blue thing, and it's kind of a left thing.
It is.
And and they're encroaching on everything. It's step back.
Now, the conversation takes a turn into something that says a lot about how desperate people are getting. Ma jokes about Trump stepping in to change permitting laws. And that's wild. Not because it's Trump, but because Maher is not some MAGA guy. He's not in that lane. He even admits Trump is the kind of dude who sees a problem and goes, I can fix it, whether he has jurisdiction or not. But when someone like Maher is even half joking, can the president override local permitting laws? It's a signal flare. People are so fed up, they're fantasizing about a wrecking ball. Not because they love the wrecking ball, but because the building is on fire and the exits are locked. That's what one-party systems can breed. By the way, when the same leadership stays in power and the same ideology dominates every office, the machine stops fearing consequences. It stops listening. It starts assuming it's always right. And the regulations get thicker because nobody's there to say, okay, but what if we're overdoing it? The system becomes a closed loop of people who all agree with each other while the public is stuck doing paperwork for a garage door.
Okay, it doesn't fit 3 cars. I don't know what these cars are. It fits 3 motorcycles.
Right.
Okay, I don't live in a mansion. I don't want to. I live alone, okay? I've got a wonderful house, happy to have it. No one would mistake it for lifestyles of the rich and famous. Okay, so I wanted to change my 3-car garage, wink wink, to what it should be, a 2-car garage. This took 3 inspections. Inspections?
Right.
I'm just changing my garage. Why do you have to be involved in my life when I'm changing my garage?
Because
if it falls down on my head, that's my fault for doing it with a bad contractor.
Right.
And then you get the part that's almost comically honest. Maher says he tells Gavin Newsom to knock it off. Stop making rules. Leave people alone. And Newsom apparently says, we're doing it. But Maher's like, I don't see it. That right there is the modern political disease in one sentence. Leaders announcing reforms that don't show up in reality. They'll hold a press conference about cutting red tape. But the red tape is still strangling people by the time they get home. And Carolla's explanation for why it never changes is maybe the most cynical and maybe the most accurate. Some politicians like making rules. They like it. It's power. It's control. It's the feeling of being needed. And when your whole career is built around we need more oversight, you don't exactly wake up excited to make yourself less necessary.
And Trump says, well, we're going to go in and we're going to change the permitting laws. Now, he is obviously a guy who just pulls things out of his ass. I get the impetus to do this. Like, why wouldn't you want to do that? He's the guy who sees a problem anywhere and he goes, I can fix that.
Right.
But is there any jurisdiction for the president to override local permitting laws?
I think I don't know about precedent because no one cared and it never existed. And if you're building a log cabin in 1871, there's no court case on that. I think he can because I've heard something about it. But the point is
that's why Maher says his favorite answer from a politician would be, I don't know, I'm not in charge. Ask your dad. I don't run your house. Imagine how refreshing that would be. Imagine a politician saying, you're an adult. Handle it. So, what's the bigger takeaway here? Because the point isn't just to clown on California. Although, let's be honest, California makes it really easy sometimes. The point is, when government stops being a guardrail and becomes a maze, regular life becomes exhausting. And that exhaustion turns into anger. And that anger turns into political whiplash, where people start saying, fine, whoever will actually cut through this mess. Get them in here. And you can already see where this goes if nothing changes. People leave. They move to states where the process is simpler, cheaper, and faster. Or they stay and feel trapped. And when enough people feel trapped, they don't become more compassionate or more patient. They become resentful. They start seeing regulation not as protection, but as punishment. So, here's my question for you. Have you ever dealt with a situation where you felt like you needed permission for something that should have been common sense? A permit for something small, a never-ending inspection loop, a clerk who acted like they owned your property more than you did. Drop your story in the comments. Seriously, because I want to see how universal this is.
I think he can because I've heard something about it. But the point is it's a metaphor for government and the size of government. When you can't do what you want to do on your land that you own and that you pay taxes on, and you need to ask permission from them to do stuff on your land, then we have gone across the Rubicon. We have crossed the Rubicon.
And look, if you love California, that's fine. If you vote blue, that's fine. If you vote red, that's fine. The point isn't tribal cheerleading. The point is functionality. It's basic adult autonomy. It's the idea that a government should serve people, not babysit them. Because when safety becomes a blanket excuse for absurd control, it stops being safety and starts being a racket. Fees here, delays there, consultants everywhere.
Stop making rules.
I tell this to Gavin every time I talk to him.
Just knock it the fuck off. Just leave people alone.
And he says we're doing it, but I don't see it, to be honest.
Well, also,
he says he's doing it when I confront him with it, but I don't see it.
No, because they're there to make rules. That's why they got into power. They like it.
They like it.
What I want...
That's it. They like it.
I want, my favorite answer from a politician is, I don't know. I'm not in charge. Ask your dad. I don't run your house.
And the people who can't afford to navigate it, they're the ones who get crushed. So yeah, Maher and Carolla went in, and it was ruthless. But sometimes ruthless is what it takes to say the quiet part out loud. If your system treats a garage door like a national security issue, the system is not protecting you. It's suffocating you. And if we don't start demanding common sense, real common sense, not slogan common sense, then don't be shocked when more people start looking for wrecking balls. If you made it this far, hit like, subscribe, and share this with that one friend who's always defending bureaucratic nonsense like it's a personality trait. And seriously, comment below. What's the dumbest rule you've ever had to deal with as a homeowner, renter, or business owner?